News Management, which, by the way, recently said heads would roll for on-screen errors, like, for example, constantly mislabeling Democrats and Republicans as from the other party. And very funny, recently, instead of showing the cover of Sarah Palin's book, Going Rogue, when talking about the book, they showed the cover of a book called Going Rouge, which is actually a parody or a criticism of Sarah Palin. I can actually hold this up. I'll hold it up for our cameras. They have a pie chart here that adds up to 193%. Strange. I don't know what's going on with the math over there, the research department at Fox News, but most pie charts I've seen add up to 100%. And I didn't get that far in math in school, so maybe this is a different type of pie chart, but that's the last I checked.
There could be some new type of pie chart that we're, not privy to.
It goes really high. It goes to 250%. Well, speaking of Sarah Palin, today in Palin, in her book Going Rogue, Sarah Palin attempted to honor U.S. soldiers by quoting UCLA basketball legend John Wooden. You've heard of John Wooden.
Yes.
A lot of our listeners have. Saying, "Our land is everything to us. I will tell you one of the things we remember on our land. We remember our grandfathers paid for it with their lives." Now, that doesn't sound like something John Wooden would say. And the reason is she actually meant to quote Native American activist John Wooden Legs, who was celebrating the Sioux defeat of U.S. General Custer at the Little Bighorn. Oops, guess she should have thought about that one. John Wooden, UCLA coach, John Wooden Legs, the Native American. A little bit of a mistake there. And then Sarah Palin on the Rusty Humphreys show asked about what she thinks about the Barack Obama birth certificate issue. This birther thing that was led in great part by Orly Tates, dentist, lawyer, and real estate agent. Well, here's what Sarah Palin had to say about it.
Sarah Palin here on the Rusty Humphreys show. One of the questions Jason asks is, would you make the birth certificate an issue if you ran?
I think the public rightfully is still making it an issue. I don't have a problem with that. I don't know if I would have to bother to make it an issue because I think enough members of the electorate still want answers.
Do you think it's a fair question to be looking at?
I think it's a fair question, just like I think past associations and past voting records, all of that is fair game. I got to tell you, too, I think our campaign, the McCain-Palin campaign, didn't do a good enough job in that area. We didn't call out Obama.
Right. So what she's saying is, number one, she's considering how a candidate has voted is on the same level as considering whether Barack Obama is a U.S. citizen. That she's putting on the same.
And friends with terrorists.
And friends with terrorists, of course. Was he palling around? But also she's saying that her campaign didn't do a good enough job, McCain-Palin, about talking about things like, is Barack Obama a citizen of the U.S.?
Right. Well, obviously, they were told not to.
Right, absolutely. And she has criticized that. They
right.
were told not to do that, and she was criticized for, or rather, she criticized the campaign after the fact, saying, hey, we should have done that. We actually should have gone after that. Remember the ground beef, Lewis, that was recalled for salmonella? The company that happened to was Cargill. And it seems, of course, after the public shaming, they got it all worked out. They cleaned up their act. Everything's all set. Well, actually, no. For the second time this year, they are recalling thousands of pounds of ground beef contaminated with a drug-resistant strain of salmonella. You would think that the same company, it's either, they always want you to think that it's a big mistake. It's just a one-time thing. Of course, next time it happens, it would be a different company. No, Cargill again. Trouble with the ground beef. I think we need to investigate what's going on there. Do we not?
We probably have some friends who are, more well-versed in this corporate stuff.
Right. Well, I would say, I actually, at the time that the previous one happened, I had some steaks, and just my paranoia and hypochondria made me ask, should I throw all the steaks out? $25 or $30 worth of steak. I almost threw them out, even though people had to talk me off the ledge and say, hey, it was ground beef. It wasn't in this part of the country. It's already been a week. I'm probably going to stay away from the steak for a little bit now that this has happened. Should I not? Or am I going overboard?
I think steaks are safe. You just might want to avoid the ground beef.
I will do that. That's all the time we have this week. Midweekpolitics.com is the website. Next week, lobbyist, or I should say government relations consultant, Maggie Bergen, will be in studio with us. Plenty more also on the Afghanistan issue and what will happen with healthcare. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back with more next week.
You're listening to Midweek Politics with Dave Pakman.